Hi, everybody. Welcome to the workforce track here at Iowa Ideas. I'm going to be your room host today. My name is Aaron. Hope you all enjoyed your lunch and the keynote speaker, Ronald Ferguson. A reminder that we go to 5:30 today. Tomorrow is going to be a half day, followed by a great closing keynote by David Kennedy and a virtual social tomorrow from noon to 1. During this session, please feel free to submit questions or comments in the chat session to the right of the screen in the Whova app or on the desktop. Please keep your comments and questions respectful, and please stay on mute during the session. Before I get started, I want to say a quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, ITC Midwest, and our track sponsor, Corridor Careers. Corridor Careers has provided a quick 15-second video for us all to watch. So please go to the upper right-hand corner of this session and find the view recording link and play that video now. And then when you are done, please click View Stream to return back here. I'll give you 15 seconds. Okay, I hope everybody had a chance to finish that. Now I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, John Steppe, business reporter for the Gazette. John, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. And thank you for tuning in to the Automation in Iowa panel of the 2020 virtual Iowa Ideas Conference. We have a great panel here today, so I will jump right into things here. So if everyone would just give a quick summary of who you are and what you do. Let's start with Emily.
Hi there, my name is Emily Logan, and I am the Dean of the Industrial Technologies Department at Kirkwood Community College. And so I supervise our 18 programs that we offer and support our faculty and students in those degree options.
Jeremy.
Yeah, hello, my name is Jeremy Walter. I'm a regional automation manager for Acieta. It's a automation company located right here in Council Bluffs, Iowa. What I do is meet with customers and help them automate their various processes throughout manufacturing and production facilities around the region here.
And then Abhay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abhay Grover. I am a program manager with Center for Industrial Research and Services at Iowa State University. We are a state and a federal funded institute. Our main goal is to go out and help small and medium manufacturers across the state of Iowa in different things such as workforce development to automation. And just recently, we opened the Digital Manufacturing Lab at Iowa State University. And we'll be talking about that more. So looking forward to it.
Great, thanks. So first of all, starting with Jeremy, how would you describe the overall state of automation in Iowa, and how has that changed over the last 5 years?
Well, automation is one of those words that can go many different directions. In the state of Iowa, you think about the agriculture. The technology has been added to agriculture. You think about your conversation with any farmer today. What's a service call? It's a guy with a laptop now. So a lot of that's automation people don't think about. Me specifically with automation, robots in production. The real discussion has been what are we going to do to get product out the door? How are we going to fill a workforce gap that we're seeing? So the automation is really coming in to try to do more with less, meaning make more product go out the back door with the same number of employees that are coming in the front door, or less in some cases. As we all know, Iowa unemployment is relatively low, and trying to fill that labor gap is what we find ourselves in discussion with a lot of times with the customers.
Then Abhay.
Yes, and as Jeremy said, that probably how we define automation, if we take a step back and understand what automation means for everyone and how we kind of define automation is key here and critical as well, because we've worked with a lot of different manufacturers across the state of Iowa, and some manufacturers that we've worked with, for them, the word automation means just having like an Excel sheet to keep track of supplier quality. We work with manufacturers who are thinking of onboarding a fleet of autonomous vehicles, at this point. So it's relative, and I guess the piece here is that it's the value that automation adds to your business is what defines automation. So I think the state of automation in Iowa today. I guess one of the stats that I was looking at was that about 50 to 60% of the total work hours could be automated in every county in Iowa. So there is a lot of potential out there. It's just, the question is, are we ready to adopt automation, and are we ready to kind of, work through our way? Because I guess it's at some point it's inevitable that we are going to run into automation, and the kind of efficiency, safety, and other throughput increases that we see with automation. It's just a matter of time that we actually have to adopt automation to the level that exceeds our business values. So.
Oh, and then Emily.
Yeah, I concur with the notion that automation can mean different things to different audiences, and understanding how simple automation might seem, but yet how complex it could be as well. And so for us as at Kirkwood, really the challenge is, how do we build, maintain solid curriculum that helps students enter the workforce with the skill set that will benefit the local companies for whom they go work. And of course, a lot of that requires partnership and collaboration with local industries. And I think it also requires just a general understanding that automation doesn't have to be an extremely sophisticated or a practice that undermines employment, right? That there are jobs that can be created through automation, not just jobs lost. And certainly our concern about the workforce here in the corridor and beyond is that we have people to fill the jobs that are available, and that we have the type of training that those individuals might need to be successful in those positions.
And then, Abhay, I've been looking into what you've been doing with the Digital Manufacturing Lab, and that sounds really interesting. What has been the response from companies since that's opened?
So the Digital Manufacturing Lab, we actually, so what Center for Industrial Research and Service does, like every 2 years, is that they would go out and conduct a survey among the small and medium manufacturers. And when I say small and medium manufacturers, I'm looking at the manufacturers whose employees are less than 500, and that's our niche market where we try and help the manufacturers with, because our understanding is that most of the large manufacturers already have the things that they need to kind of move on into the direction of automation. So the goal here is, and again, the lab was inaugurated last year. It's exactly 1 year. We're celebrating the 1 year anniversary today. It was inaugurated on 26th of September, 2019. So the goal was to bring on small and medium manufacturers, help them educate what advanced or Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing technology is out there. B was to engage them in some of these technologies, and I think C was to de-risk technology adoption. So, when we talk about technology adoption per se, most of these manufacturers struggle with, hey, I'm running my job shop, or I'm running my manufacturing facility. I don't want any kind of downtime. So we give them a safe place where they can come and, reserve the space and work on some of these, automation proof of concept, so they can go back to their facilities and implement it, and, work out all the issues with the implementation before they actually go into some of these implementation project. So the response to our digital lab has been pretty impressive. And again, I might be biased because I lead the digital manufacturing lab. So, but we have had engagement from more than 200 manufacturers. And again, the understanding is that since last 6 months we have not been able to host anyone in the digital manufacturing lab because of the COVID-19 and other issues with that. But again, despite of all these issues, we have been able to engage more than 200 manufacturers. And when I say engage, we have engaged them through webinars, through one-on-one sessions, through doing technology trainings on technologies such as collaborative robots, 3D printers, laser scanners, vision systems, state-of-the-art sensors. And then we've also done a lot of automation assessments where we go into manufacturer's facility and try to identify and prioritize applications for them. Helping them make decisions in terms of what automation can help them and bring about the best value in their businesses. And then on top of that, even helping them develop proof of concepts and implement some of these automation, technologies in their processes. So again, pretty good response. And I think over the last 6 months, despite of again COVID-19, we moved our services to virtual process review. It's a neat thing, and as simple as it sounds, the manufacturers can go in and make a video of their processes and upload that to our website. And then, between me and other project managers, we have about 40 program managers here who have different expertise, from like Lean Six Sigma to technology automation, such as me. So we go through that video, we come up with 3 or 4 recommendations, and then we go back to the manufacturers and help them at least develop a mature, qualified pipeline for their automation projects, as and when they're ready with the capital and things as they improve in COVID-19. So again, pretty successful response, and we cannot wait to open the lab back again for visitors. And we have our next lab tour on 5th of November, which is again a virtual lab tour. Sorry, a plug.
And then, it doesn't look like we're going to be out of the pandemic anytime soon. Are things going to stay virtual then until this pandemic's over?
I think most of the manufacturers that we've worked with, we've come to realize that virtual is actually more efficient way to engage with manufacturers. So mostly when we were qualifying our leads, or when we were engaging in manufacturers, we would actually travel like 2 hours, 3 hours one side to visit those manufacturers, understand their needs, and come back. So a lot of that time has been cut short, and I think we are more efficient. We can cover like 2 to 3 manufacturers in a day. And I think most of the manufacturers are also preferring that because of how succinct, how straight to the point our discussions are being virtual. But having said that, yes, it cannot replace the face-to-face engagement. Even some of the aspects that we need to go into the manufacturers and understand are kind of limited on the virtual process. But I foresee virtual process as an enabler and facilitator of a lot of our discussions over years to come, if not just short term. So.
And then for everyone, this one I'll start with Emily. What do you see as the future of automation in Iowa?
Well, it seems like signs point toward more automation. And I think I'm excited and inspired to hear about more small and medium-sized businesses finding ways to be engaged with automation. And certainly from my perspective, as an educator, the question is, well, if the future is more automation, how do we come alongside that and maybe help be a leader or a strong collaborator in building that workforce? We certainly at Kirkwood and at other community colleges, for sure, there's strong curriculum. There are strong faculty who have lifetime experience and work experience that lend themselves to be very strong educators. And so I hope in terms of the future of automation that we can continue to partner and find how that synergy, that partnership between education and workforce and the community can really maximize the opportunities of automation.
Okay, and then Jeremy?
Yeah, I think the future of automation in Iowa is inevitable in all factors of our life. I was talking with some colleagues here the other day and how far we've come. We probably all remember clap on, clap off the clapper. That was round of automation, and now we're, hey Alexa, turn on the phone. Alexa, order me a pizza. So it's just coming into every portion of our lives. So bringing that into manufacturing, the whole way through the process to streamlining just production, just information. Big data is able to use automation to crunch numbers that we couldn't ever do before. So the future of automation in Iowa, it is the future. Every part of it, I think, to keep us to be able to be productive, to keep growing and keep living. It's, for all of us to carry a computer in our pocket, years ago was an idea that would have been unthought of, and now it's a common practice for each and every one of us. It's a manufacturing process for automation. It's just more and more and more. Each process gets looked at further and deeper to try to refine and increase productivity through the process of automation in each way. Not just robotic automation, just process for all types of purposes, for production increasing, for safety is a big thing that comes in. A lot of jobs that weren't the safest for a person to do for 8 hours a day. Trying to bring in some automation to help with that. Lift assist devices are all types of automation that I think are mandatory for Iowa.
And then Abhay.
Sure. So I think as when we talk about Iowa, a couple of things that we we have to look deeply into is some of the mindsets which I think is in general common across all manufacturing. And I can speak about manufacturers because I engage with them on almost daily basis. And we also work with a lot of different businesses, but not just manufacturing. Is I think the mindset shift from being reactive to their business needs to being more proactive. So I think just this shift in the whole mindset is really critical, and automation is pushing that. And to push throughput, I think that's very important. And what I mean by that is, let's say your quality issues in your manufacturing facility. Most of the times we are reacting to issues that have already occurred. We are not working on things that, we are not being proactive about issues and predicting the issues that can actually stop my production line. And automation is helping us doing that. I think the second thing that within the state of Iowa we need to understand is that it's not the shortage of labor. I guess the other thing the skill gap is really important. So in terms of manufacturing, again, if you look at just the state of Iowa and compare it to the nation, in terms of skills such as CNC machine operators, skills such as soldering, skills such as welders, skills so automation has to address those skill gap. And the other thing to remember is that there are 10,000 baby boomers who are retiring every day in the nation. So we're not producing as many skilled people to fill those gaps. So automation might help us bridge that gap as well. And the fourth point that I would like to mention here is, as we talk about future of automation, the other thing that we shouldn't forget is the infrastructure requirements that automation needs. So as a state, are we ready for some of those infrastructure requirements? Just for an example, if we talk about Internet of Things, Internet is critical, right? We need Internet. And if we talk about the state of Iowa, I was looking at it today. Our internet broadband speed on an average is like 51 megabytes per second all across the state, and we rank like last in the bottom 5, right? So, and then we're almost like 45th in the rankings in the United States as it comes to the internet speed, the access to internet, and stuff like that. So, building that infrastructure to help people adopt technology is also going to be very important. So those infrastructural changes are really important when it comes to automation.
And then, with that and the skills gap, there's a lot of talk about, okay, Iowa's shrinking workforce. Does automation help offset that, or is it even more reason for the skills gap to need to change? Because, hey, we need these people for these jobs that get tied to automation? Let's start with Emily on this one.
I don't know that I could say if it's one or the other. Maybe it's both, right? That maybe we have opportunity to provide the education and training to advance the skill set of workers, and maybe we need to look at the value of automation to fill positions or fill potentially things that human beings used to do. And certainly things, repetitive actions, things that put people in danger. There seems like there are so many opportunities there. And so when we think about enhancing the skilled workforce, from an educator perspective, it becomes, how do we attract people to that education and training? How do we provide that education and training in a way that is accessible to them, particularly if they're already working, and maybe even working full time, or maybe even working in a field where they're trying to advance their skill set to move to a different position in their company? And then how do we help make sure that we're providing that skill set, that training that employers really need, so that we can wrap back around and do continuous improvement in our programming and processes here at the college. So I think it might be really both, thinking more both and than either or.
Okay. Abhay, what do you think about this?
So, Emily touched on really great points. It's kind of that chicken and egg thing here. So, I think one of the biggest things that I'm observing over time is that the knowledge has been decentralized, right? And that's the good part about automation. When we talk about the greatest skill set that anyone needs today, I think it's learning, unlearning, and relearning. Those are the three words that you need today, right? Because at the end of the day, the technology is changing. If I invest in technology today, the average time that technology takes to advance is less than 2 to 3 years. You buy a phone today, Apple iPhone 10, and then 3 years later you find that you already moved on to Apple iPhone 15, right? So I think moving from that point, the change in technology and trying to have the right kind of motivation in terms of again, the knowledge is open source. You can go on the internet. You can try downloading whatever you want to learn, and taking that in your own hands is really critical. And I think most of the people who are looking towards upgrading their skills are actually looking at these spaces as well, getting the learning virtually. But yes, automation is driving a lot of different changes. It's again, the changes are inevitable because, as I was reading the stats today, was like, by 2030, automation is going to add 15 million jobs, right? And when we say it's going to add 15 million jobs, that means that, that gap has to be filled by highly skilled people who understand automation, who have skills in, let's say, controller interface, who have skills in PLC programming, who have skills in, cobot programming, who have skills in integration. Those are the things that I think the future generation needs in terms of just filling that gap and filling those 15 million jobs that would be created in future by automation.
And Jeremy, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to it's just willingness to learn. We are problem solvers. So trying to fill the skills gap is continuous learning. It's inevitable in every part of our life today. And I think that just goes right to the workplace also. Trying to fill the skills gap, getting everybody up to speed with automation and becoming comfortable with it is becoming the new norm. Educating, coming out of schools with skills to be able to run the high-tech equipment is what's going to help us with getting everything keeping moving forward.
And then Abhay, you mentioned how much things change so quickly. Emily, from the Kirkwood perspective, how do you teach knowing that, hey, this technology is going to change dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years, if not sooner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, on a real practical note, I appreciate the comments about how and partly what we need to do is we need to equip people with the skill set of how to learn, how to problem solve, and how valuable that is over their lifespan as a professional or as an employee. I also think for us at a community college level, we have to have a close connection to local industry so that we make sure we're improving and updating our curriculum in ways that make sense. And that is a constant process, and it's a time-intensive process too. I think that's the other piece at the institutional level. We really have to be committed to, on an annual basis, meeting with industry partners to say, what are we missing? What do we need to do differently? And then we have to make the commitment to modify our curriculum or our programming or purchase machinery, equipment, software, what have you. And of course, all of that is an issue of money, right? How do we prioritize those types of changes? But it's of utmost importance. And so I would say that at Kirkwood, at least, we are continuously looking at how do we collaborate with our industry partners? How are we providing the education and training that our students actually really will need and use? And then fundamentally, how do we help students become problem solvers, critical thinkers, able to learn? And how do we nurture that in students while we have them here?
And then, Jeremy, from the business side of things, is there anything that, you're wishing that, somebody, say on the Kirkwood side, would have more of as you're trying to find these workers?
Well, I think it was well put. It's problem solving on every sense of it. It's you can't run into a problem and say, throw your hands up in the air. You have to be able to identify it and then attack it. So the education portion of just problem solving in general, it's not really going to school to learn every situation, to know how to answer every problem. It's know how to look and find the answer is what the real skilled training that we look for is. Don't give up and find the answer.
And then we have a question from a viewer asking if any schools are teaching, I may mispronounce this, I apologize, COBOL in Iowa, or COBOL.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh,
Are panelists familiar with that?
John, are they trying to say cobots or?
Cobot, maybe?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
That would make sense.
As far as schools, I'm not sure, but as far as industry goes, as far as training the workforce that we have today, cobots is an upcoming thing. Cobots are basically collaborative robots, and I'm pretty sure Jeremy would have a better answer than I do. But then we do have cobots in our digital manufacturing lab. And the plug with cobots is that it's easy to learn. It's a flowchart programming interface that you can learn fairly quickly, and you can redeploy that technology fairly quickly. So I would say it's just another skill, or it's just another thing in your bucket. So if you understand the basics, fundamentals of programming, if you understand if you have basic knowledge about robots, I think cobots are pretty quick to learn. And again, Universal Robots and both Omra and Dove do a very good job. If you go online and search Universal Robots Academy, you should be able to register yourself, and there are like a couple of beginner courses that you can take. Even LinkedIn Learning has a cobot program that you can actually take and learn. It's a couple of hours of investment. So I think that gives you a fair idea of the introduction to cobots, and then depending on what kind of application that you're working on, depending on whether that's the right fit for your application, CIRAS can take that next step and help bridge that gap.
Oh, I have some clarification here. The COBOL programming language that you were talking about earlier is what the viewer was saying.
Sure, sorry. We don't do anything with COBOL language at this point.
Oh, well. And then mean, Kirkwood has been known for a lot of this, skills training that I think people assume automation is going to take over. Is that, a matter of you change which programs you teach, or do you see that job replacements even happening?
Well, we're constantly looking at the courses we teach and how we package courses into, we might call a program or a diploma or a degree. And you're really bringing up an important point is, do we need to repackage some things so that we're equipping students with the right types of knowledges, experiences, and skills that really make them the best fit for industry employment? And we are constantly doing that. The size that fit all maybe 10 or 15 years ago is maybe not the size that we need moving forward for the next 5 years or 10 years. And so, but that can be scary, right? As when we look at doing things differently, it can feel pretty scary and sometimes threatening for people. And so, as we approach those conversations, being mindful of people's experience, being proud of their skill set, being proud of the work that they have done and are able to do, and yet pushing forward and figuring out how do we help people advance their skill set. So I think it's a balance, right? We want to honor sort of the legacy and the strong foundation of good curriculum that exists at Kirkwood and at other community colleges. And yet we have to keep pushing forward in ways that are meaningful and helpful for the community.
Okay. And then Jeremy, so you're, selling a lot of this. How do you pitch people on automation and robots?
Honestly, it really starts with the conversation. I don't know that I always go in with the idea I'm going to sell them a robot. I go in and listen to what their problem is. Sometimes it's not a solution of a robot. It's you should consider a conveyor as a piece of automation. You should consider a new type of sensor. It's not always a robot. When it comes to be a robot, it's just identifying the task, identifying the risk, and working with the customer to put together an automation plan for them using the robot. We know automation at Acieta. We don't know their product, their production, their requirements for that. So choosing an integrator like Acieta as a partner is a crucial piece of the puzzle a lot of times to bring those two teams together to be able to come up with a successful automation project in the end versus a try and unsuccessful project.
And then what are the risks associated with this increased automation that's coming?
I don't know that I can identify a risk in general. Throughout time, the entire industrial evolution has been automation has taken our jobs. We had Luddites in the early 1800s with weaving. It was going to end the world. Eli Whitney changed the way how many people were in agriculture. I think the average size of farms in Iowa was 40 acres or 20 acres at one point in time. I think the average now is over 300. So putting the risk of automation is not really, I don't know that there is a risk. The risk is not identifying your process well enough to implement automation correctly, I think would be the best way to say it.
Okay. Abhay, what do you think about this?
So again, I think it could be answered, and I want to go back to Jeremy's question as well. What are the challenges that we face when small and medium manufacturers adopt some of these automation processes or technology? And I've engaged with again more than 200 manufacturers over the last 2 years. So one of the big factors that we see or challenges that we see is the basic understanding of these manufacturers about their own processes. And it's very, very amazing to see that, or surprising to see that, if some of the common questions such as, what is your standard operating procedure? How many variants do you operate? What is your, do you have any time studies on your processes? I think just understanding the baseline is one of the biggest challenges that I see going forward as we are trying to prepare for automations, and not just manufacturers, just across all the businesses. And then I think the other challenge is just defining a scope for your automation. So when it comes to automation, the other challenge that we have seen is that the manufacturers or the businesses would like to start with some of the most complex processes that they've not been able to solve for the last 10 years, right? For us, I think when you're trying to adopt automation, it's all about quick win solutions. It's about how do you start small and attack the low-hanging fruit, build your confidence, and then gain that confidence, and then rebuild that, and then train your workforce and motivate their workforce about automation. So that's the other thing. And the other thing is, I think, the third point is setting realistic expectations. Again, when we are adopting automation, our understanding is that it's going to solve everything for us, right? Trying to build that kind of understanding that, I'm going to target this kind of application, this is what's going to cost me, and this is what it's going to solve, right? And so I think building the realistic expectations around that is really, really important. The fourth, I think, is developing or finding that internal champion within your own organization. Having buy-in from people who are working on shop floor, it's really critical. We've seen projects that we thought would go really, really successful going north really quickly because the person who was who would be operating that machine, or who would be operating or tending to that automation piece, is not convinced that this automation is required. So having that champion inside and again, as Jeremy mentioned, choosing the right partners. How do you qualify partners? How do you understand if there are every person who's outside, who's a system integrator or a distributor or a state or federal funded institute like us, we have our own mandates, we have our own priorities. How do we identify and qualify that, hey, this is the person that I would like to work with, and the distributor or system integrator that I'm working with, their interests align with me on what I'm trying to do, and some of the biggest challenges that we see when we're trying to, again, adopt automation is that, the other day I was talking to a manufacturer and they said, hey, I'm really interested in collaborative robots because that's just a $30,000 machine. And I want to invest that in, I want to buy it and automate some of my processes. And just where the conversation started, when we started talking about the engineering cost, when we started talking about the cost to maintain the cobots, and when we started talking about the training cost and the warranty and stuff like that, the cost was upward of $110,000, right? So from what you understand as automation is just about 30% of the cost. There are 70% of the cost that's actually behind the scenes that we need to, as we're doing ROI calculations, that we need to actually look into. Is I think the other really critical piece here. And in terms of risk of automation in Iowa, I think the other misnomer that we have is that the blue collar job versus the white collar jobs. According to me, I think the white collar jobs are going to be automated much faster than the blue collar jobs. Look at the automation in the financial sector. Look at how artificial intelligence and machine learning is taking over a lot of our mundane financial planning jobs. Look at the software pieces that are overtaking even the non-disclosure agreements. Now you don't require a lawyer. You can basically do it like 10 times faster if you have a software that can actually look at your NDAs and find out mistakes and stuff like that. So I believe that the white collar jobs are being overtaken faster by automation as compared to the blue collar jobs. So that's, again, one of the misnomers that wanted to talk about as a risk.
Okay. And then Jeremy, are you seeing that too, where the white collar jobs, a lot of the people that Acieta is doing business with on automation, where if it's replacing a job, it's replacing a white collar job more often than a blue collar job?
I don't know that I have a vantage point for that. It's very rare with any of our customers that we're replacing a job. It's filling an unfulfilled job or adding to someone's job. So it's never, hey, we need to replace the people. The conversation 10 years ago could have been, we need to take some labor cost out of this product that we're manufacturing. But for at least 5, if not more, the discussion always is, I need to make this. I need help trying to make this. I have that I cannot take because I can't produce what I need to produce with my current processes.
Okay. And then a reminder for our viewers that if you have any questions, feel free to drop that into the chat. Then next question, do you see cost as an issue when, Abhay, you were talking about how, that solution cost $110,000. A lot of companies might not have that $110,000 line in the budget that's open.
Right. So, again, when we advise our clients, or when we advise manufacturers around, there are 4 stages of kind of technology adoption. So the first stage is kind of, information gathering stage, where you're going out and gathering your information. The second stage is you're trying to bring that information back and benchmark it against your needs in your facility. That's called the analysis stage, where you're actually looking at your facility, understanding your facility, and trying to understand what kind of technology is good for your facility. The third step could be the acquisition of that technology. Now you've made that decision and you're acquiring that technology. And the fourth step is actually utilizing that technology. Over past, year and a half, 2 years that I've worked here, I've seen people putting less effort in information gathering, less effort in analysis stage, less effort in acquisition stage, and putting a lot of effort on utilization stage. And struggling with that stage, because now you don't know if that technology is redeployable. There is a lot of downtime, and your cost subsequently increases over time with that investment, because you're not able to utilize it to the efficiency that you would like to. So and what our push is that if we spend more time and more energy on the information and analysis stage, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of that utilization stage. So, and that's where our focus, as CIRAS is that, let's help people spend more time, understand their decisions as they're making those decisions. So, cost is a challenge, but at some point, don't let it become a sunk cost fallacy. It's like, if I've invested it in, now I have to use it somehow. Let's not get to that stage. Let's invest more time up front and try to do our due diligence before getting into some of those things. And at the end of the day, we like to say that it's not about technology, it's about the application. Your application should drive what kind of technology you're buying and what kind of technology you're looking into.
And then Jeremy, are you seeing the cost be an issue when you're trying to sell this to companies?
Yeah, cost is always a discussion. You can fix any problem. We can send a man to the moon. Not all companies can do it. It's a very forward point. Hey, what's the budget? What is the payback? Try to find a solution that fits it. Because if you come up with a multi-million-dollar solution, it fixes the problem, but it only fixes one portion of the problem. So the cost is always an upfront discussion that needs to be part of the equation to solve the entire problem.
Okay. And then another viewer question about kind of how automation could change which industries are big here. Iowa's been a leader in renewable energy. Their strong agricultural foundation and legacy of manufacturing excellence has positioned the state to excel in wind energy and renewable fuel. Do you see these as areas that will continue to see grow, or are there other industries that could be coming into play here with automation?
I believe that all the manufacturing industries are really strong. One thing Iowa has going for it is resilience. We're problem solvers by nature. So trying to get into renewable energy, we're a reliable workforce. So I travel all over the U.S. and I'm born and bred in Southwest Iowa here. And it's maybe a little biased, but I try not to be. But we're problem solvers. Great workforce here, being able to utilize every aspect of technology that's available to us. And that's what's led to some of the very successful companies here in Iowa. So I think that bringing some of the new manufacturing here is inevitable. Trying to fill the skills gap is the big piece of that we're working really hard with, trying to make those companies more interested in coming here, because that's a piece of their puzzle that they need to look at. the availability of the workforce.
Oh, good. And then Emily, you're really seeing the skills gap from, place that's doing a lot of the training. What's right now the biggest obstacle right now for the skills gap? Or in terms of fixing the skills gap, I should say.
Probably, this is probably the most obvious answer, but COVID. When you think about providing education that requires what we describe as lab work, hands-on, working with machines, it's hard to do that virtually. And so Kirkwood has worked tirelessly to provide safe learning environments, both virtually, of course, but also on campus. And that has come at tremendous effort. And so for us as an institution, like all post-secondary educational institutions right now, that's just a tremendous challenge. And not to put too sunny a side on it, but it also has led us to some real innovative practices where how do we utilize software or technology or something like a webcam to teach students how to do things that maybe we would have never even considered trying to do virtually before. And so it's pushing us as an educational entity to think about accessibility, which I think is what we have to be thinking about COVID, irregardless of COVID. We have to be thinking about accessibility. Many students at community colleges work one or more jobs, work more than 40 hours a week. Many students have families or they have caregiving responsibilities. And so our students, they really make sacrifices and commitments oftentimes to come to college. And so accessibility and meeting the needs of students, I think, is a key piece in this conversation, because we can't help people build skills if we don't make that training accessible and just available, right? How do we make it available? And certainly the comments about broadband, internet access in the Cedar Rapids area, there are still parts of the city where internet is iffy at best, thanks to that derecho, right? So put in a natural disaster on top of a global pandemic, and it's complicated right now, but all the more reason to make sure that we're connecting and communicating with industry to make sure that as we're strategically putting efforts in directions, we're doing it smartly. We're making the right sort of efforts to meet the needs of the community.
And then you mentioned the virtual aspect. How do you virtually teach automation?
Well, the people who are experts in that are not in the room with me, but I can tell you it is really incredible what I have seen instructors figure out how to do, anywhere from shipping materials to students' homes and then having a Zoom meeting like this and walking through step by step to just some pretty incredible software that allows students to do it essentially through a computer software program. Now, is it a perfect solution? No. And I don't want to give the illusion that somehow that just is going to take care of anything that we might be able to do face to face. But it's interesting to think about the synergy around automation and educational delivery, right? As well as equipping individuals to be skilled workers related to automation. So even in the educational industry, right, we're thinking about what are processes, what are ways that we can reach students, and what ways might automation even be a part of that?
And then you mentioned also the derecho. Was that, that feels like longer than 2 months ago. But after that, how did Kirkwood overcome some of those challenges with, people not having internet? In many cases, more than 50 days after the storm.
Pure grit and resilience. We were bragging about Iowans before, and I'm going to jump on that too. Just incredible grit and resilience, teamwork, collaboration, and a can-do attitude. That problem-solving piece that we mentioned before, of instead of saying, well, I guess we're not going to have a fall semester, it was, how are we going to make this work? when we have buildings that were damaged, when we had equipment and machinery that was damaged, when I have faculty who had significant damage to their homes who still showed up to work, and so it was just really incredible. So are we through it all? Of course not. There were millions of dollars worth of damage to Kirkwood facilities. And so we're going to still have to work to rebuild. But boy, things like that really show us what we're made of, right? And gives us an opportunity to dig deep and say, okay, who are we and how are we going to keep pushing forward despite all the obstacles? And I can say, I think we're really proud of the work that we're continuing to do, despite the challenges that we have right now.
Yeah. And then this one first for Abhay, the skills gap issue goes away, what opportunities are there for businesses in Iowa with automation?
Well, I think the question will let me summarize our overall discussion today. Again, so it depends from business to business. It's hard to comment on, from one business perspective. And as I previously said, some of these industries, let's say financial sector or lawyers or healthcare sector, might have different advantages and might see of that white collar shift. Some of these, sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, might see that change in blue collar jobs as well. But overall, I think there is a lot of opportunity out there and despite of the skill gap as well. There are a lot of low-hanging fruits in terms of efficiency, in terms of throughput, in terms of quality management, in terms of that mind shift from going from reactive to being proactive about processes, about the whole business as a whole. I guess is the opportunity in our hands at this point. And I think despite of the skill sets, despite of whatever we have at our hand, and again, the other conversation is that automation is also making it's kind of that it's also making the technology more palatable as well. And when I say palatable, it's actually some of these technologies that we have today, just the learning curve on those technologies has decreased, right? So let's say cobots per se. The learning curve on cobots is about 3 to 4 days. Traditionally, if you look at if you have to do like a G code on some of these more traditional SCARA robots, it's about like 5. It takes you like at least a month to kind of get the bare understanding of these systems. So I guess a lot of opportunity. Automation is going to fill a lot of those gaps and pull everyone into the right directions. At the end of the day, efficiency rules, and if that's our North Star, I guess everything is going to follow.
And then what specifically will this look like in agriculture?
Question to me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm an agricultural engineer by training. So I guess in agriculture, as we're looking at, they say data is the new gold, right? We want to collect data. We want to understand. And when I say being proactive, the part of that is, trying to be able to understand your systems better. So, the advances in agriculture, like, soil moisture sensors, precision agriculture. In precision agriculture, look at the sensors that can actually give you the exact, sodium, nitrogen, and potassium at a given depth of the soil at a given time in real time. You're probably sitting in your home and you have a good understanding of what your cropping pattern is going to look like. You have a good understanding of your yield. You can predict that yield over time. Right. The tractors itself, John Deere is working on, and I worked for John Deere for about close to 5.5 years. So the autonomous vehicles that are taking over, right? The tractors are becoming more and more autonomous. The operations are more and more augmented. And per se, as Emily was talking about training and teachers at a distance, we have seen virtual reality and augmented reality come into picture in terms of training, in terms of filling that gap of that distance. Even like, let's say, preventative maintenance on a machine. A person sitting in Germany is actually guiding you to to kind of help do some of those preventative maintenance stuff on your machine. So all those things apply to agriculture. I think it's going to in terms of just getting a better understanding of your fields, just trying to conserve water, just trying to get better, even like, let's say the drone technologies are taking more and more, getting you more and more vision insights on, your cropping patterns and how that's changing over time, on the temporal variations, over 10 years, over 15 years, just try to help you better be prepared for what's out there. So I guess a lot of opportunity there as well.
Oh, well. Jeremy, what do you think about this?
I think you hit it on the head. It's the prescription agriculture wasn't the term, 10 years ago. Being able to see real time what your production yield is, and then use that for your applicating process in the spring is powerful. It's changing the game to be able to put on what you need instead of guess. We had the conversation earlier about big data changing the way we think. That's what that is, in my opinion. Being able to see it and evaluate that data and then create an action plan from it. That's the future of it. To be able to do that and formulate a plan. That's the piece of the puzzle that was missing. It's no more intuition. Necessity. You have data to back your thoughts.
Oh, how important is data then with automation?
Well, we kind of highlighted earlier, identifying a baseline, I think, is what Abhay identified as one of the key points. It's amazing often, where are we at? The answer isn't known. It's something, well, we need to automate it. Why do we need to automate it? To have those conversations, create that baseline, to have that data is something we think would automatically be there, but oftentimes we're each involved with our day-to-day task, what we need to get done, to be able to step back, identify the problem and come up with a plan is a piece of the puzzle that gets overlooked often.
And I guess the other piece I would like to add to Jeremy's point is that, what we are calling this is augmented decision making at this point. There are so many constraints, there are so many inputs, there are so many variables out there. Just having to make a decision, an optimized decision, when you're faced with a constraint, you need to have some kind of augmented services that can actually help you either build your confidence in that decision making. So I think just getting that data is helping you predict a lot of patterns that were unknown, that you haven't seen over time. Just the other day we were looking at installing a vibration sensor on some of these old legacy machines to bring them to pace. There are 40 years old machines in clients' manufacturing unit. We were trying to use the vibration and the temperature sensing from those machines to predict when the bearing is going to fail. And if it fails, then when that new order needs to be placed so that you can decrease the downtime, right? Some of those augmented decision making I think would be enhanced by data and looking at data.
Oh, well. Emily, what do you think about this?
Well, I certainly admire the conversation around data because it is time intensive, right? We have to figure out what are we trying to understand or what are we trying to measure and what are the best ways to get there. And then once we know something, what are we going to do about it? And certainly at Kirkwood, we're doing that a lot. And I think when I was hearing Jeremy and Abhay talk, I was thinking about how do we make sure our education and our programming is what fits the needs of the employers and in our community. And I was thinking about how data is so important, to be able to say of these graduates in this academic year, how many of them are employed at X, Y, or Z type of industries, right? And just being able to think about what does data like that tell us about the work we're doing and how we can improve it. And so even though that's a little bit of a different spin on data, I would say that it's incredibly important for what we do at Kirkwood and making sure we're continuously improving and matching the needs of the community.
And then we have about a minute left. So I just want to do one kind of speed round question here. A lot of misconceptions we've been talking about the last hour. What do you think the number one misconception is about automation in Iowa?
What I hear is that it's going to take jobs away.
I think what I hear about is that it's going to solve all my problems.
I'd like to echo both those. It's going to take my job away is one we hear often, you know, in my role, bringing in a robot, you know, to replace a role. We don't usually replace this role. It's bringing 2, 3, you know, skilled jobs in along with it to program the robots, to maintain it, sending the maintenance guys to school to develop a new skill.